we will now go to the first panel of the day. So I will just take a second. If there are any questions that my presentation has triggered, you can maybe also ask them during our panel, but the second panel, that will be only 30 minutes anyway. So we have now two, in my view, excellent panels. They're very short, to the point. Maybe we might take a few questions here and there. So may I now invite the moderator of the first panel to the stage, and she will then introduce her own panelists. So I hope that, yes, so we can go to the first panel in terms of the, yes, excellent. So, excuse me, Mina İlköz. Thank you very much. So I leave the floor to you, and feel free to introduce your panelists yourself.
Thank you. Is it on? So hello everyone, I'm Mina. I'm co-founder of Upschool. Upschool is an edtech startup that focuses on empowering women in tech. So far we trained more than 2,000 women, and I'm very lucky to host 3 distinguished female business women today. So since my focus is diversity and inclusion, it's another exciting day for me. Before coming to this panel, actually I was curious about the women empowerment rate in fintech sector, and women make up only 19% executives in fintech companies. So this statistic underscores that the importance of our conversation today. And I'm thrilled to introduce 3 remarkable businesswomen joining us. And it's not often we see such representation. So Amna Ajmal from MasterCard, Clara Drodi from Cognitive Finance Group, Gülçin Aytemizer Teletar from Starpay. Please come onto the stage. How are you doing? Is everything all right?
Good, thank you.
It's great to see you. So we have a limited time, so I'm just going into the conversation. I will start with Clara. So you are a technology strategist and experienced advisor in the use of AI. So could you share one key initiative or a strategy that you implemented and has an impact on advancing digital innovation, and what are the lessons that you learned so far?
So first of all, I used to work in financial services, front office investment. Can you hear me now better? So I used to work in financial services front office in London and Luxembourg. So I'm speaking from the point of a former practitioner and current advisor. So I'm not an armchair philosopher about what can be done about AI. Speaking from practice. I'm going to give you an example about the things that we advised a client to do as early as 2016. The question was, okay, Clara, we're very excited about AI. We hear you. It was back in the day when AI was like an abstract concept in financial services. I was like, it was my 3rd year in doing advisory work. By the way, I resigned from my very well-paid job in financial services to learn Python. I was that convinced that AI is going to upend everything in our industry. So they came to me and said, so give us an example, use case. What can we do? Here's the data, find us something which you think is worthwhile pursuing, and to us is ethical AI. That's the core of value in deployment of AI in financial services. So we said to them, let's just do one example and see how it works out, because we want to deliver business value. We're going to help you predict default amongst your customers. And they go like, okay, so let's run this. It's not a complicated process to do that. We had a list of potential default clients. And I said, and the client goes like, so what are we going to do with this list, Clara? And I said, you're going to write a nice letter to them and say, in case you need help from us, we're here for you. You're not going to say, our AI system has identified that you're going to default. If you are having any problems, just reach out to us. No. What happened, here are the metrics, which are very interesting. Over time, and we're looking at 5-year spectrum horizon of evaluation and data, over time, this approach has done two things. One, reduced significantly below the average of default for that particular client. Second thing, that particular bank client, they have increased the business they derived from the same group of clients they identify as being in position to default. So what did we learn from this? Was that when you actually build trust with your customers, when you're there for them and improve that pot called currency of trust with your customers as a bank, they will stand by you and with you and will bring more business to you, not to somebody else or other bank. In the UK, we had this saying before all this digital innovation hit retail banking: it's more likely to get divorced than to change the bank account. Now it's just people are moving like left, right and center, not because there are options, digital bank options there, but because the customer service in retail banks in England has been absolutely decimated by the wrong implementation of automation. It reduced the quality of customer service. So that's what we learned.
It is hard to see and hear these kind of solid best proven practices, so it's a great example. Thank you. So Amna, you've been selected as top 25 women leaders in fintech. So as I mentioned previously, the fintech industry has historically been dominated male mostly, and we are seeing more women in charge and driving leadership roles. So in your point of view, what are the some unique challenges that women face in the payment industry, and how can we further empower women in the and support women in this space? I'm looking for problems, but also solutions as well.
Sure. So I would say 3 challenges. First is likability trap. So men are positively correlated when it comes to competence and likability, but women have a negative correlation when it comes to competence and likability. And it's not a statement, it's proven by research. So at Harvard Business School, they took a case study, which was of a real entrepreneur called Holly. And they gave half of the class the case study of Holly. And for half of the class, they just replaced Holly with Howard, a guy. And then the 2 groups came together and they asked them, and both said Holly is very, very competent, Howard is very, very competent. There was not a single text that was changed in the 2 case studies. And then it was like, would you like to work for Holly? And including women, they said no, because Holly is not likable. She's selfish. When it came to Howard, everybody wanted to work for Howard, and he was more likable. So this raises a fundamental issue. It's not that men or women are doing it intentionally. It's a bias, and I think that needs to be taken care of. Second, I would say is a dinosaur in the room, which no one wants to address, that as a woman, you enter a room, you start with -10. Men, as a worst case, start with 0. So instead of still discussing about gender parity, and I'm very fortunate, I currently work for an organization that prioritizes this and lives and breathes it, and in the past also. But it's time to understand not only about gender parity, which to me should have been done 100 years back, but to understand, acknowledge, and recognize women, that their starting point is different. And I'll give you an example recently. 2 weeks back, I attended an event, and I was very professionally dressed up. And I was attending it with a peer of mine, a colleague, and a very senior executive of a big, big multinational. The name also starts with an M, hint, hint, came to me, and I introduced myself. And before I could finish the sentence, he went to my peer and he said, "Is he your husband?" So I said, "No, he's not my husband." Before I could say anything, he said, "Is he your boss?"
right? And my peer was kind enough, because at one point in time I used to be his boss. He said, no, actually she used to be my boss, right? And it just reminded me that before I open my mouth, before I even introduce myself, I'm discarded. And there has to be a recognition for that. It's more than understanding, right? I have a very diverse team. 70%, 80% of my direct reports are women. They run big P&L in businesses. And I feel they would feel the same, right? They enter a room and they're starting with -10. And I don't think so it's a point that anybody talks about, right? It's just somewhere in the background. The third challenge I would say is that women historically and till date, and I hope it changes for my daughter and the next generation, lack self-belief and confidence. And this could be the way we are raised. There was another study how people were observed in a park, and when little boys were climbing everything, parents were encouraging. And when little girls were trying to do the same, they were like, no, be safe, you may fall down, right? So it could be because of any of those factors, but that's a fundamental problem. I mentor so many women, and I'm talking about a very senior woman. I was having a conversation with her, and I said, you were in this meeting, you didn't say a word. And she has a lot of content. She's super smart. And she said to me, well, when I was about to say it, someone else said it. I thought about it, but then that was already said. And I said to her, do you really think men think like that before they open their mouth and start speaking? And I'm not actually disrespecting any of my men colleagues over here, I have wonderful support from men at work and men in my personal life. But I just think it's an issue that women need to deal themselves. We need to going to solutions. First, we need to surround ourselves with people who would uplift us, okay? Work for people who would uplift you, who would talk about you in a room when you are not in the room, Work for people who would push you. Like, I leave a meeting, and if the women have not spoken, I ask them, why didn't you? If women don't praise and brag about their work, I ask them, why didn't you? I have a woman who's delivering 99% of her budget, and she was making a presentation to the management, and she wanted to focus 90% of her presentation on the 1% that she's not delivering, That's the solution to that. For the first 2 points that I mentioned, work for organizations where you will have a voice. And create your voice. You have a voice today. 10 years back, if I had an opinion, maybe I will get my friends together and say it on a coffee table. Now I can reach millions and thousands of people. I have social media platforms that I have access to. There are events happening, conferences happening. So use your own voice. Don't wait for the change to happen. Become that voice that will make a change. And lastly, I would say organizations are great. At the end of the day, you work for a manager. Okay, if your direct manager is not a supporter, is not going to be your ambassador, is not going to uplift you, is not going to be part of your career growth journey, change.
Great point. So I have a follow-up question. According to Columbia Business School, there is an article that what are the things that change human behavior? So they found out the 3 things. One of them is data and science. Second one is inspiring stories. And third one is role models. So you are here, 3 role models. So we are very lucky. But on the other hand, I would like to hear a best practice or a role model case as well from you, Emna. Do you remember any? You mentioned some of the things that we should be careful about, but maybe you have a story, maybe you lived yourself, but maybe you see in someone else. Do you have anything that stick your mind? I lived something like this and it was really striking, and she or he was role model about that.
So I will tell you quickly 2 stories. First, I'm the first woman in my family to work. So when I raised my hand that I want to work, and I said this is my dream, I was told that's a stupid dream. So I called up a professor of mine who told me no dream is stupid. As long as it's yours, that's the best thing. It's yours. No one can take it from you. And I remember it till now. Second, there was a boss of mine who was based in the headquarters of City, London at that point in time. and he had came back from Poland, and I was in my 20s, and he asked me to come to his office. I go to his office, and he's on his laptop, and he just tell me that, oh, you know, Poland is looking for consumer asset head, and why don't you go and interview? I mentioned your name. And I said, that's not possible. I'm thinking to myself, because the person who was doing the job was in his 40s and I'm in my 20s. How's that possible, right? And I had only managed 3 people, and this role required 300 people. So I was like, there's no way I can do that. I come back to my desk, there was a Polish person sitting next to me, and I told him, and he said, of course it can't be that role. I go back again to my boss's office, and he's like, no, it is that role. I come back, and I tell this guy, no, it's the same role. And he's like, okay, even if you interview, you're not going to get it. I go back to my boss, and I say, even if I interview, I'm not going to get it. And in an American company, you can never ask the age of the person. But I remember he looked at me, and this is 20 years back. I still remember it. And he said, how old are you? And I said, 27. He's like, so what? You don't get the job, or you get the job and you get fired. What difference does it make? You'll find another job. And I still remember those words of so what? Like when women say that, oh, I don't want to raise my hand because maybe I will not get this job because I think out of the 5 criteria, I don't meet 2. And I'm like, okay, raise your hand. So what? I think that so what just sticks to me, that it's so important to ask that question to yourself.
Yes, please.
Forgive me just one second.
Sure.
So
Could you take the microphone?
when it comes to finding role models, I'd like to share with you very briefly the things that inspired me. And I started my career back in the day when I was the only woman in the front office and the only foreigner, except for the coffee lady, in the whole of the whole company. So to manage money and be heard and listen and respected, there are 2 things I had to learn, because I didn't have role models back then. The only person I had, it was myself. And this is for men and women. I raised a son, he's 27, and I raised them based on the same principle that I raised myself as a professional. Self-esteem. And how do you find that? You mentioned self-esteem is very important. Actually, I found this book, and I recommend it to anybody to buy it and study it. It's called The Psychology of Self-Esteem. It's written by an American gentleman. He died, Nathaniel Branden. And he's written a lot of books about self-esteem. Men and women alike. You don't need, even today, when we have so much DEI conversations, I still believe, and I wouldn't have built a career in AI, leaving my job behind. If you do not have your self-esteem, your own self-valued opinion about yourself, you don't need validation from anybody. Because anybody can validate you. You can have a boss who would say like, oh, you're great, go do, so what? But then if that little voice in your head says, oh, no, you're not going to do it. If you do not have your inner self sorted out, you're not going to get much further than what we did when we didn't have any role models. So that book is very important.
Thanks, Clara. So, Gülçin, you have held senior roles in various leading banks and fintech companies. So, collaboration and partnership are often essential in driving successful transformation, digital transformation journeys. So, can you share an example of a collaborative effort or a partnership that has been particularly effective, accelerating innovation within your business?
Okay, thank you. First of all, I'm so honored to be on the same stage with 2 smart, successful and impactful ladies, and thank you for your kind invitation. And back to your question, digital innovation and transformation always begin with recognizing a gap in the market or an unmet users that technology could address or a pain point for users. So that technology changings made companies to make an improvement about their product offerings and innovative-based solutions. And back in my careers, I already started in the last 2 decades. I have several experiences in payment systems, retail bankings, and recently fintech ecosystem. And in terms of the retail banking's nature, it is different. And when you look at the fintech ecosystem, it is completely different than the others. So I have 2 different digital transformation examples for, primitively retail banking. Exactly 10 years ago, I had a chance to develop and launch Turkey's first buy now pay later product. So I already had a really strict collaboration and business development and networking, expanding with nearly 5,000 merchants with offline. I already started. Then, since the pandemic, people tend to make more digital, transactions. So it's already needed. And also there is a multi-channel experiences. Then I already shifted the experience to digital experience. So I had different clients like retailers, telcos, electronic companies, white goods, etc. So that was the milestone for me, and that was the essential, milestone for the turning to digital transformation at that time. But when you look at the fintech perspective, they have different challenges. They have different priorities. So, especially when you look at the banks, they have a very structured, and well-defined operations process and very well enriched product offerings. But when you look at the fintechs, as I said, that especially, they have different challenges. Developing and launching the product and putting it on the shelf immediately is so crucial. So time to speed, time to market. That's why during this process, sometimes losing and ignoring the customer feedbacks and insights might be. That's why during my previous experience, I had a chance to transform the customer product-oriented strategy to customer-oriented strategy. That was the really milestone for me because, especially in fintech ecosystem, speed is so crucial. Hey, let's develop the product and let's put it on the shelf. But however, there is no judgment or perspective from the customer side. That's why I had a chance to, transform this mindset 2 years ago to customer-oriented strategy. So what it saved us a time. It increased our net promoter scores, or it increased our customer satisfaction. How did it happen? Actually, it was really, in the beginning, it was really hard for me because, every change starts with regrets. So I already tried to change many people's mindset. It was
It's
a really
the toughest one.
Yeah, that was a really long time for me. But in the end of the, 2.5 years later, I was very lucky to see that, hey, people started already look at from the customer's perspective. They already started to look at the customer journeys. And we had a chance to implement different AI projects for operations, better optimization projects, voice of customer dashboard, and etc. So, and after all that, I was really happy to see that, hey, the people are looking from the customer perspective. So, in a nutshell, especially if you are working in a very, fast and speed organization, comparing to the banks, let's say, to changing this kind of mindset, transformational organization is really hard. But if you are patient, then I'm sure you can see the happy path. So, but in a fintech ecosystem especially, you would like to make a, collaboration. That is the essential. If you would like to grow, collaboration, networking, and doing business development is so crucial in our ecosystem.
Thanks, Gülçin. In terms of diversity and inclusion as well, the collaboration is very important. We are not just doing by ourselves for women, but also men included. We will close this gap together, so to say. So you mentioned in your couple of words, but what recommendations do you have for women and who want to advance in their careers in the fintech industry? We have candidates here. You mentioned some self-esteem specifically, but maybe we can start with you, Clara. Do you have anything to add?
So I'll tell you what worked for me. In the day when I didn't have any role models, when I started my career in asset management, I didn't have any role models when I pivoted my career in AI field, in financial services at a time when AI was not even an understood concept in financial services. What worked for me was this. I proved myself as a solid professional. When I was working in asset management, front office, how could you prove yourself? Because obviously I was young, I wasn't able to manage money because I didn't have that much experience. Regulators, they had some limitations. So what I did, I made my own decisions in terms of investments pick. I built a virtual portfolio and I tracked the performance of that portfolio. And every single time I had the opportunity, I would just put my hand up talking about what you've just said, which is just put yourself out there and pick your battles. So I put myself up and said in investment meetings, I said, this is what my portfolio has been doing for the past quarter compared to the rest of the company. And people would start noticing, and I kept doing that until my gender and my accent didn't matter, because the only thing that mattered was how we're going to make money. And if she can do it, we don't care. She makes money for us. So first of all, be really good at what you do. Don't cut corners. Be really top class professional. Pick your battles, and also pick the public opportunities or the board positions that you are invited to join for free. In the last wave of narratives, DEI and all that, women here, women there, I've been getting phone calls, do that, join that board, do this, for women. But how about pay? Do you want me to do this for free? I'm happy to do this for free, but this is my time. My clients pay me. And then that's why my point is that self-esteem makes you think about your self-worth. When you know your self-worth, you put a price on it. And at that point, you can make discretionary decision. I'm going to go on that board because I make a lot of impact. It's free, it's for charity, but I'm going to do that. I'm not going to do that because it's a waste of time. I don't have a voice. I'm not going to make any impact. So you need to pick your battles, pick your opportunities, be really strategic about it.
Gülçin?
Yeah, thank you. Adding to that, out of my professional life, I'm also some lessons to women-specific group, women in business and leadership as well. So there are many groups, women, especially from different, who have different backgrounds, different locations. And when I ask them, what's the gap for your next step role? So unfortunately, they have many fears, like having fear of misunderstood, like fear of having a wrong decision, like having fear of failure, unfortunately. So this kind of failure, actual fears, makes us to take fewer risks. And unfortunately, many of us believe that if we work hard enough, what we believe, what we desire also come to us effortlessly. Is that so? I don't think so. So we need to hear more failure story. We need more success story as well. So that's why, and then we can empower each other. So in a nutshell, in terms of lack of confidence, maybe it should be better to add something. Yes, when we would like to raise up hands in a company for the job position especially, it is really so sad that if the women, women deserve this position. However, the job position requires nearly 80% or 70% for this job position. Women doesn't apply. However, men apply to this position, minimum requirement 60%. So they think that they can deserve it. So that's the difference between men and female mindset. So please do not estimate for your values. My personal mantra is be humble and be curious. So especially expertise is what you know. Being humble, knowing is what you don't know. So if you want forward, you should make that you go one way or the another. So be resilient. Building confidence makes you really resilient in your life.
Emma?
Very well said. I would add two things. One is that when I mentor a lot of women, I see that every next job or every current job, the way we have been taught about corporate ladder matters a lot. And because mostly women have to raise a family, and 100% of the time a woman gets pregnant, at least so far. So they automatically think they have to take a back seat in the career, right? So I always say, think of your career your career is not 5 years, it spans 30 years. Think of it as blocks of 10 years. Okay? So don't get so fussed about that, oh my God, if I go on maternity leave and I come back and what happens? Your career is spanning 30 years. If you even have to take a step back for 1 year, but you are actually enjoying that time and you feel that's the right choice you made, do it. But do not get worried, concerned about it. Do not let it damage your self-confidence and your self-belief and your self-esteem. That's one thing. Second, I would say is there are a lot of choices available to women today that were not available to us. For example, there's a lot of research that is being done right now about how the average age at which women are giving birth is increasing. You know, my mom had me when I was 17, and I had a grandma in her 30s. You know, I ruined the family average by giving birth at the age of 36. But you can freeze your eggs today. That's a choice available to you. It was not available in the past, right? So you have to be very aware of the choices that are available to you. There are companies who give maternity leave and paternity leave for a year. I'm fortunate to work for MasterCard where mat and pat leave are equal. And they're 4 months across the world, regardless of the rule of the country. So then work for companies that actually would support the lifestyle choice that you have made, right? And the third and the last I would say is that talk about your ambition. Why are you worried that there's one person already in the job and there are two who actually are already, everybody, the whole company knows they're successor of this job? No. You go and you say, I want this job because the job requires A, B, C, D. I have A, B, C, and I think D I can learn because I have demonstrated agility in the past. And once you have the job, then negotiate the salary. Like, I don't understand why we would be shy about negotiating a salary, you know?
Is it possible then?
And also, it doesn't depend on what you were making in the past. It depends on what you're bringing in the future and what is the value that you put to it.
Forgive me, just 1 second, because we got only 37 seconds. My advice to women, do not be the token woman. Do not accept a position and then not really be at your best. You accept a position, you're going to be absolutely the best whoever has ever done that job. So I've seen cases, unfortunately, where women were placed in roles because of metrics, DEIs and all that, not to deliver on the roles professionally, from a professional standpoint. And you're going to be scrutinized. It's going to be really tough on you. But you have to accept that board role or that C-suite position or that head of department. You have to know that you're going to be the best that position has ever occupied ever in the history of that company. That's the mentality. You do that, you're going to just carry the next wave of successful women. Because unfortunately, there are a lot of conversations about, oh, DEI. You can see this in the States. Oh, DEI. I'm like, look, women, they don't deliver. She's the chair of John Lewis, whatever. She is DEI, and she's not good. That's why she didn't deliver. That's why companies are not delivering as another woman. We don't want that because that goes against what we try to achieve.
Great points. Thank you for all. There is a sentence in London Underground, mind the gap. I really like this phrase because it makes me think that does your business have the integrity? Do you have the integrity? How do you close this gap? So we talked about this mind the gap in digital transformation, or diversity and inclusion. So maybe the message would be, how can we close the gap? And what are the possible ways to do that? So thank you. It was a great panel. So thank you very much.
Thank you.